Hello everybody, welcome to Erudition Education. This is our second science video on the channel. The course is biology, and today we'll be talking about pollination. So in last video we discussed about photosynthesis, which is really important for both animals and plants, because while plants are producing food for themselves, they also exhale carbon dioxide for animals to breathe. So this time we'll be talking about pollination. And the main idea to understand is that pollination is also super important. And let's get right on to the video. So what is pollination, right? So before we get to what pollination is, we need to understand that there are two types of pollination. There are two types, right? So one is self-pollination and the other is cross-pollination. So I think you can kind of understand what this might be about, judging from the names, self-pollination, cross-pollination, but I'll explain more later. And I just want you to know, the goal of every living organism, including plants, is to create more of itself, or offspring, for the next generation. So basically, pollination is all about how a plant reproduces. And please look at this image to understand the parts of a flower. Right here, that's the stamen, this little thing. That's a pollen grains right there, basically on the stamen. And this is the stigma right here. That's the pistil, this. And that's the ovule right there. All right, let's move on. So first, let's talk about self-pollination. All right, self-pollination is the transfer of pollen from the anther of the flower. The anther's right here, this. Anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same kind of plant. A good way of thinking about this is that the flower basically makes a clone of itself using itself. So right here, right, the anther. So basically this is when the plant basically reproduces with itself. So this is self-pollination right here. As you can see right here, the anther goes right there, from there to there, the pollen grains, and then basically creates seeds. It produces itself, right? Now cross-pollination, right? Cross-pollination is when outside factors like wind or bees carry pollen from one flower to another, right? So why do bees carry? You might be thinking that, right? Like, how's that possible, right? Well, bees, right, usually go to flowers to look for nectar, take it back home and make honey with it, right? And while bees are getting the nectar, their bodies usually brush up on other parts of the flowers, including the anther where the pollens are. So without knowing it, while the bee is looking for nectar, it carries pollen and pollinates other flowers. So the bee doesn't even know it, and it carries pollen from one place to another. Then the female flowers take the pollen and produce seeds to make more plants. That's basically cross-pollination. Now, we need to get to another thing. Why is this important, right? Just like photosynthesis, why is this important? Why is this whole process, important, Why? So pollination is important because without pollination, plants wouldn't be able to reproduce. And if they don't reproduce, then no photosynthesis. And if there's no photosynthesis, then they wouldn't produce oxygen for animals. So without plants, right, we won't have oxygen, right? So without photosynthesis or pollination, it would be bad for both animals and plants, right? So if you want, please review self-pollination and cross-pollination right here. Refer to the parts of the flower right here, all right? And thank you for watching. Comment down any questions you have or any biology topics you would like us to cover next, and bye.